Hello everybody, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
We are here with the November 2021 Block of the Month for the Valley of the Mist Quilt Guild. First things, remember, go to the website and download instructions with photos. I am trying to put the instructions in the notes, but no photos there. All right, so let's get started. So this month's block, calling it Spinning Stars?
I think
that's what we call it.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so it's a beautiful block, but I gotta tell you, it's so easy. You could make 1 million of these in an afternoon. So we are trying to use, we're near the end of the year, so we're trying to let you use up some of your scrap pieces, but if you don't have the right sizes, you'll just have to cut it. Anything else you can think of before we start?
I think that's it. We just need to get with our fabrics what we need this year.
So what do we need?
Okay, we're doing a focus fabric again. You get to pick your own. And a coordinating fabric. And 2 neutrals, a light and a dark or whatever works for you. Neutrals being gray, black, white, brown, cream, whatever works with your fabrics. Okay, so with that being said, we also need, what we're going to do is what we're calling them fabric 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have fabric 1, which is 4 squares that are 6 3/4 inches. And then we have fabrics 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to need at least 1 of each. So obviously you're going to need 2 of one of them.
Yeah.
And they need to be about 2 3/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches.
Now, I'm going to comment on that sizing. She's saying about. If you make them much longer than the 5 1/4, you'll just waste it. It really won't fit. It'll kind of just like on this block here, I think this was pretty close to the 5 1/4. So going much bigger won't help you out at all. You can go littler, and we did kind of design this block to have a very open feel to it. So if the blocks are bigger than the 2 3/4 wide, these star points and the edge star points just get bigger. So they take up more of the neutral space of the block. So it's up to you if you think it's a little too sparse. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do after you cut your pieces of fabric or gather them from your scraps, you're going to take the rectangular pieces and I want you to stack them all, we're just going to say face up, okay? They need to be the same. But I want you to cut them individually because if you're free cutting, they can bunch up, and so it just looks better if you cut them individually. So you can use a ruler or you can free cut, and so you're just going to take, and I want you to be consistent. Either start at the bottom right and go to the top left, or vice versa, go bottom left to the top right, but do it the same. That is what determines which direction your star spins. Oh, I've got that lump under here I forgot about. Okay, so I need to move this off the lump under there. And so they don't have to be that perfect a cut. You know, like you can see, this was a little bit wonky. It'll work fine. Now, after you've cut all 4, I'm not going to cut those 2 just because I don't need to show that. You're going to work on each corner individually because the pieces could be different sizes and you could cut them differently. So each placement of one of these triangles is unique to where you place it. It doesn't matter which corners you pick on the block. Well, it does. You're going to pick 2 opposite corners, but it doesn't matter. When they rotate, they're the same. The direction matters on how you cut that triangle. So the first thing I want you to do is you've got the background piece facing up and you've got the point that you just cut facing up. And I took them and I laid them out on all the block and kind of decided how I wanted my final block to look ahead of time. Or you can just randomly pick them. But you're going to take this, one of these points, and you're going to lay it both face up on a corner. And then you're going to pull that back till you have a half an inch sticking out of width on both sides. So you're just going to take a ruler and go, okay, that's a half inch, that's a half inch. Now it seems a little bit wrong. Why am I doing it a half inch? But we're marking not the sewing line, we're marking the placement line of where you're going to put this. And then when you sew it, you're going to sew it a 1/4 inch. So you have to double how far you take it off, and then when you sew it, it'll be right. So after you place it there, I just want you to take with whatever works depending on your background fabric. And keep in mind, this is going to get, it's not going to show. So you can use something permanent, or you can use just a fabric marker. But you're going to make a little mark at this intersection of the triangle and the back of the block, okay? So at that point, after you've marked it, you can go through and I would pair that up now with this piece, so you know that one goes to that piece if you're going to go ahead. I did each one individually, so I just worked on one corner and then I worked on the next corner. So if you want to do them and pair them, then I would just suggest you take a clip and clip it on or pin it on and keep them together. Now, the next thing you're going to do, if you're done marking that, you're going to take this and you're going to look at the point where you marked, and I'll put it back down. And now you're going to take from your, we're going to say you're going to always sew from this more smaller corner. This corner is very thin and it kind of gets, sometimes get jammed up under your needle. So this side, put it so this sticks off a 1/4 inch, and you're matching up to that line on the other side, wherever it was. I'm just guessing here. And you're going to make a 1/4 inch seam along here. The only thing I want that can be a little confusing is, remember, you're sewing from here to this part. You know, make sure you go between the two fabrics. Don't come off. I mean, it's a 1/4 inch. And you know, if you have trouble doing the 1/4 inch with this chunk sitting on here, you can take and put a ruler between those 2 points and cut off that point, and then just line it up on there. Whichever way is easier for you, because that's going to get cut off. That's your choice. So before placing it on here, what you could have done is take where those marks are, put a ruler, here's the mark, here's the other mark, and just cut that off, because it's a placement line. It's not your sewing line. Now, that's what we're going to do in this first step. We're going to go through and we're going to cut those rectangles, place them on the corner, sew them on, and then we'll be back. We'll talk about the pressing and trimming in the next step. Okay? All right, so we have our corners sewn on our squares. But I want to go over a couple of things before we move on. In this month, Shelly's kind of like my guinea pig, because she hasn't sewn one of these blocks. So, and I've already sewn 2 of them, so she hasn't had to experiment with the easy way to do it. So when she was doing her first block and putting the corners on, and she actually cut her rectangles from the bottom left to the upper right. So she did opposite of what I did.
Right.
And when she first was setting the rectangle on, she almost did it wrong. And so I just want to reiterate that when you lay that rectangle on the corner, it should just fit on that corner. If it looks funky, you have it the wrong direction. So turn it. Right. Okay? I mean,
should be no background showing,
the 90
really.
degree angle, you should just set it right on that corner, and it's going to cover that corner because they're both facing up. And then I want you to take and just pull that corner back. And the easiest way to do it is to have a ruler. Oh, Shelly was supposed to bring hers. Did you?
Oh, my ruler? Oh, wait.
She forgot it.
Didn't.
Okay. Find a ruler that's a 1/2 inch wide. Now, this This is a ruler that, you know, is one you can just buy. And I think Shelley has one, this is kind of fat, but it's a 1/2 inch wide. And Shelley has one that's like for marking miters when you're doing a binding, I think?
No,
or?
it's actually for when you're doing on either side of the center when you're doing half square triangles and you're going to sew on either side.
So it's for marking that.
Yeah.
So it had a line down the middle. And this actually has a line down the middle, so I could use it kind of for the same thing. And we don't, I mean, I'm just going to say that if you can find something that's a 1/2 inch wide, that's going to be the easiest. And you're going to just pull that back, and you're gonna lay it right on the edge, and it needs to cover that. And it need, you know, so if you're gonna err on putting that corner on, err to make that corner a little, pull it more than a 1/2 inch. Not a lot, I mean, but don't do less, because it just will not fill in that corner if you don't do that. And Shelley did one where she laid it on and sewed it without trimming off the triangle, which is how I did the first 2 blocks I did. That's how I did all of them. But I'll tell you, it's way easier if you do a sample one. Make sure you've got that marking right, and then if you lop off that corner, and then you're just lining it up like this with that corner and sewing it on. And if you do the opposite cut, you really need to do that like Shelley did. Otherwise, otherwise you can't line up. Where's one where you cut it?
Right here.
So where she cut it, see, then you can take and put that on the bottom and line that corner up and have that to sew against. Because this corner is really way easier to sew first rather than this long pointy one.
Right.
Okay.
It's taken me way longer to do this until I did that.
Yeah. So that will make it easy, and you'll just breeze through this block. Okay, so now, once you've got them all sewn on, and one other tip I'll tell you, if you're not sure of how you want to place them, then an easy way to do it is one of your fabrics you have 2 of. The one you have 2 of, put 1 on each of your squares. And then the other 4 will just go on it, and then you can make, you kind of have a lot of choices of how to lay out the block, but it can look pretty symmetrical. So pressing. I'm going to tell you, press to the darker fabric unless they're equally dark. Like this one, this gray background, I can kind of go either way. And as you can see when I show this, I've got less trimming to do if I press in, like I did on this one. Press towards the square rather than the corners. If I press towards the corners, I've got to trim off these big little flaggy things sticking out. So that would be your next step. If you've pressed toward the corner, trim off these little flaggy things. I think in the instructions I say just take a square up ruler. The 6.5 works good. You probably have one because we do a lot with 6.5 inch squares. You're not squaring up the block. You're just trimming off these little pieces that stick out.
Or any extra you might have, right? So it's straight. You need straight edges to sew the blocks together. We're not worrying about that yet.
Well, they don't really have to be straight. I mean, if you just cut off that little piece and it was wonky, it'll be a little wonky, but
mine's wonky.
Probably it's going to look wonky anyway. Like mine are all different size pieces, so they're going to look wonky.
Okay.
But if you laid that on here, and if I just trim off, if I make sure I'm trimming off that, you will square it up.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to get rid of those stick out pieces.
Okay.
But yeah, you could trim it all the way to the corner. Then you're going to take and pick 4 of the points, and they point in, and as you can see from the final block, they're opposite the way they meet. Like you're going to have a short edge against a long edge. That's how they should meet. Okay. So it's your choice of how you want to place that. So make your arrangement and then sew the 2, 2 and 2, and then we'll be back. So we'll have 2 pieces left. We'll have 2 pieces when we come back.
Okay.
Okay? All right, we're almost done.
Okay.
We chose a little bit different layouts. We both did that easy step where we put mine that was I had two of were my green and yours was your green.
Right.
But you're choosing to lay them out different. I'm putting all my greens to the outside. When I did this one, I did kind of like Shelly did. Yeah, on hers that she's doing now. But you know, they just look pretty no matter which way you do it. So we've sewn the two together. The only trick with the pressing on this part is press them the same. So when they're laying next to each other, you're going to both press to the same direction. I pressed to the darker fabric on mine away from my light. So when I turn it around, like we talk about, when I flip this down, these two seams in the center you're going to nest. And we're going to make that last pressing. Otherwise, you shouldn't have had any trouble because none of the fabrics that we've sewn together up till now really, no seams should have come near each other. So, okay, so let's make this final one, this final seam, and we'll be right back. All right, we have a finished block. Yay! Okay, 11 down, 1 to go.
How about that?
Can't believe it's November.
I know.
All right, so here's my finished block all trimmed. Shelly's going to show you her block untrimmed.
Right. Not a lot extra, but
yeah, if you
still
were
enough to
if
trim.
you were more casual with your 1/4 inch seam, you could have it not much to trim. Shelly's pretty accurate with hers normally. So she's got the way I oversized these, you could have maybe a 1/4 inch around the edges. Should be about
maybe
it.
mine's a little less maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. So you should be good there. Trim it down to use your 12.5 inch square up to trim that down, and you should be good. All right, so next month's our last block for the year.
Right. I know. Amazing, huh?
I know. We got plans for next year. And because the Guild will be meeting, we're going to be back to exchanging blocks next year.
Okay.
So Shelly's got to make 2 blocks. This year she only made 1. As you can see from our board behind us, she's only been making 1.
I know.
But I'm going to make a bigger quilt with my block of the month, so I wanted 2 of each.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so we'll see you back here next month.